Hi, I'm Noah, and I'm a student reporter for the National World War II Museum's Electronic Field Trip on the Holocaust. Today we were at the museum's Liberation Pavilion in a recreation of the secret annex that hid Anne Frank and her family during the war. But why did children like Anne have to hide? Those who were very old and very young could not work, and were therefore not seen as useful to the Nazis. This meant that 9 out of every 10 Jewish children, a staggering estimated 1.5 million children, were murdered during the Holocaust. While an estimated 100,000 Jewish children survived in territories the Germans and their collaborators occupied, they were left abandoned after their families were deported to death camps and suffered the trauma of witnessing violence and murder perpetrated against both their families and their community. Orphan children were hungry, sick, and lacked basic necessities like food and shelter. They lived in fear that they would be caught and killed. In Warsaw, a Polish social worker and active member of the Underground Council for the Aid to Jews named Irena Sendler smuggled 2,500 children past armed guards out of the ghetto, ranging in age from infants to teens. Sometimes they were taught to play sick and were smuggled out in ambulances, relying on the hope that Nazis were afraid of infection. When that became too dangerous, children would hide in sacks, suitcases, toolboxes, and even underneath human remains inside coffins. When children escaped or were orphaned, their only means of long-term survival was to take on a new identity, a non-Jewish identity. Becoming Christian was a survival method children used throughout Europe. Irena Sendler reported that when a church was burned in Lviv, a priest gave her all the blank birth certificates, which she was then able to use to hide children with new non-Jewish names. Even then, this only worked for children that had blonde hair and blue eyes, or stereotypical Aryan features. Sendler was arrested for her actions, but then later released after officials responsible for her incarceration were bribed. The reality for Jewish children who survived the Holocaust was that most were not reunited with their families. Some never learned of their Jewish identities, and others only learned they were Jewish when they became adults. Hidden children who survived the war were confronted with the loss of family, of comfort, of home, and of identity. When families were reunited, they were often fragmented, parents and children traumatized by their separation and all they had witnessed. In some cases, hidden children were too young to even recognize or remember their own families when they were reunited years later. These survivors now faced a new struggle to reconcile identity, home, and family. How are children traumatized by war? What might be the long-term impacts of children witnessing violence? One of the aims of the Nazis was to eliminate all Jews. When Jewish children took on other identities to survive, do you think that this was a way the Nazis won? What do you think they could have done to preserve their identity? Listen to the story of Anne Levy, whose family used Catholic papers to hide during the war. Explore her oral history on the museum website to learn more about her experience.